So when one decides to go see a movie based out of a Stephen King novel, you're taking your chances. You're rolling that die and hope for the best. Take a page out of Forrest Gump. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. And as another Stephen King movie gets released, let's hope for the best here. And with that, welcome to another episode of The Romantor. My goal, as always, is to enhance the movie watching experience. So Dr. Sleep, of course, the newest movie adaptation out of a Stephen King novel written a couple years ago, which is a follow-up to The Shining. Of course, it's a sequel of sorts to The Shining, which is also made into a movie. Of course, as any horror movie fan will tell you, it's probably one of the most iconic horror movies of all time here. So I was very excited to see what this new story will bring to the table and how it connects to the original Shining. So now, before I give my thoughts about the movie here, a little disclaimer. Because I know it's a movie which is I'll be highly anticipated by many a horror fan, particularly those fans of the original Shining. And if you think you're gonna go in there watching another great horror movie, think again. This is not a horror movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's got some horror elements, sure, but it's not a horror film. It's not trying to be a horror film. This is more of a thriller, drama, if you will. So, buyer beware. I want you to go in with the right expectations, because if you think going in there seeing a replica of The Shining, that's not what you're going to get for the most part. So I want you to be sure you're clear on that before you decide to go watch this film. So for those who might be unfamiliar with what the story might be about, yes, it's obviously a sequel to The Shining, but we have a Ewan McGregor who plays Danny Torrance. Of course, Danny was a little kid from the original Shining here, and obviously he's grown up now, has a lot of issues, and given what he went through in the past, I get it. And he turned to the drink, I get it. But he's at a point now where he's got to turn his life around. He's clean, and he is contacted by a young girl named Abra, who also has the ability to shine like he does, and they're kind of communicating by that technique, for lack of a better word. And she finds out that there's this group called the True Knot, which is led by Roberta Ferguson, who plays someone named Rose Hatt, who leads this kind of cultish group, whatever the case is, that feed off young kids who can shine, and they kind of steal what's called they're stealing something called steam when they eat it, or they breathe it in, whatever the case is, which is collected by torturing and killing these kids, and that's how they gain powers and they can live for a long period of time. And so now she's asking, the little girl Abra's asking for McGregor's help to avoid being killed by this new group, and that's kind of how the story takes off. And I'll leave it at that to kind of keep things as spoilers free as I can. Now, overall, I really liked this movie. I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it, despite the fact it's not a horror film, because I'm a huge horror fan. But that being said, it's still a movie which is very atmospheric. It's really good direction here. It's good atmosphere created here. Somewhat similar to what you get from the original Shining. It's got great music. The score is really, really well done. Great shots. Cinematography is unique, and I really enjoyed that part of it, particularly when they touch on some of the Shining aspects and some of the mental abilities that they have. I thought that was really well captured on screen. And Ewan McGregor's great as Danny Torrance. Roberta Ferguson, she's great as Rose Hatt. I think she steals the show. You can tell she's having a lot of fun with the role, and I loved her as a villain here. I thought she really popped on screen. She pretty much stole every scene she was in. And again, the story is really well done. I really liked what they did here for the most part, particularly the first maybe 2 acts of the film. I was all locked in. It is a slow film. I know people, they hear that and they get allergic to it, and I get it. It's very slow paced, but it's very captivating nonetheless. It takes a while for things to kind of really get going here as you learn about the characters and what's going on. But there is some cool stuff in between, don't get me wrong. And the third act is where I think this movie falters a bit for me, which I think prevented from reaching great heights, because I was really digging what was going on here. The third act, it was weird, and this is the part I understand deviated from the original source material, and some fans may not like that. I'm not sure how the source material ended, but as far as this ending, I get why they may have issues with it, because for me, this movie is doing fine on its own. There were references to the original Shining, of course, particularly in the beginning as it sets the character up, but it seemed kind of forced, like it was unnecessary. It didn't need to have, to them to go back. You've seen the trailers where he's at the Overlook Hotel and all that stuff, and that primarily takes place in the third act. And I thought it was unnecessary because it just felt forced. I felt they were just trying to force feed all these Easter eggs and kind of pander to the original fans, which I get because you kind of want to see those tie-ins. But at the same time, I think it was a little bit too much. It was overboard. It became more of a, trying to copy what The Shining did and give you, look, is what The Shining gave us before. Here it is again, and here's some of the same cool imagery from there. And it just didn't work for me that much. I'm not saying that it ended badly, but I'd like to have seen them kind of be its own entity. And I think the book does that, if I'm not mistaken. I have to kind of research that. But that notwithstanding, I mean, you could have taken off 15, 20 minutes because it is a slow film and a long film at that. And it could have had a little bit better cadence in terms of the pace. But that being said, what's on screen is very interesting. I like the characters. I love the organization that Ferguson leads, that group, whatever it is, and that was a cool aspect to the film. And the girl, her abilities are really cool, really done well on screen. So overall, again, I enjoyed it. I recommend it for fans of the original, obviously maybe the original source material, and of The Shining. I say it's a lot of callbacks to The Shining. So, you know, if you're a fan of that, you're probably going to enjoy it more so than I did. Again, I'm not saying it's bad or good, just a choice I wish they would have done, that made a different choice in terms of how they presented the ending. But all that being said, it's still a good film, and I do recommend it. I mean, if you're on the fence to begin with, or you're not too familiar, not a huge fan of The Shining, I probably wouldn't recommend this film. But if you like what you saw from The Shining, you're into those kind of films, you like Stephen King, you like Dr. Sleep, the original story, I think this is one you may really enjoy. So if you do go watch it, comment below, let me know what you guys thought. And of course, if you haven't done so already, subscribe below and feed money to go to the movies and talk about it afterwards. See you guys next time.